If you want to talk, we can talk here, she said. No, the leader snapped. Inside, the new girl hesitated. She didn't want to be trapped inside a small room with 3 angry girls. But she also knew they wouldn't leave her alone unless she faced them. She stepped inside. The storage room was dusty and dim, filled with old mats, broken sports equipment, and shelves full of forgotten items. The girls followed her in and shut the door behind them. The leader crossed her arms. You made us look bad. Yeah. The new girl stayed quiet. You think you can embarrass us and then just walk around like nothing happened? The leader continued. The new girl spoke calmly. I didn't embarrass anyone. I just stopped you from hurting me. It's the problem. The leader shouted. You were supposed to be scared. People like you don't talk back. You don't fight back. You don't. Her voice cracked with frustration. The new girl watched her closely. The anger in the leader's voice wasn't just mean or cruel. It came from something deeper, wounds she didn't understand yet. The leader stepped closer. Do you think you're better than us? No, the new girl said softly. I just don't want trouble. Oh, there's trouble, the leader said. And you caused it. The new girl felt her heartbeat rise again. She breathed slowly, trying to steady herself. One of the girls walked behind her. The others stood to her left. They were surrounding her now. The new girl stayed calm. She didn't raise her hands. She didn't move. Why don't you just admit it? The leader said. You were trying to show off? I wasn't, the new girl replied. I just wanted you to let go of my arm, the leader scoffed. And you did that little fancy move? Everyone saw it. It wasn't fancy, the new girl said quietly. It was simple. The leader's eyes narrowed. So you do think you're special? No, the new girl said again. Not at all. The room grew colder. Or maybe it only felt that way. The leader's expression changed from anger to something sharper. Something almost desperate. You think you're the only one with problems? She whispered. You think you're the only one who's had a hard life. The new girl didn't answer. You walk around like nothing touches you, the leader said. Like you don't care about anything. That's not true, the new girl replied softly. The leader stepped even closer. Their faces were only a few inches apart now, then why won't you fight? The new girl lowered her eyes. Because I promised someone I wouldn't. The leader blinked, taken aback by the honesty in her voice. Promised who? She demanded. A teacher, the new girl whispered. Back in my old town, the room grew still. For what? The leader asked. The new girl took a slow breath. Memories she tried to bury began to rise. Because I hurt someone once, she said quietly. By accident. I didn't mean to, but I used too much strength, and I promised I'd never let anger guide me again. The girls went silent. Even the leader's expression softened slightly. The new girl continued, her voice gentle and filled with a quiet pain. I trained for years to stay calm, to control myself, not to become someone who lashes out. That's why I don't want to fight. The leader looked at her for a long moment, unsure of what to say. The tension in the air shifted. It wasn't gone, but it changed shape. It felt less sharp now, more confused. One of the girls beside the leader spoke for the first time. Then, why did you move like that in the cafeteria? The new girl turned toward her. Because she grabbed me, and I reacted. It was a reflex, not anger. The girl looked away embarrassed. The leader let out a slow breath. Her anger didn't disappear, but it lost some of its heat. You could have just acted normal, she muttered. You didn't have to make us look weak. The new girl shook her head softly. I wasn't trying to make anyone look weak. I was trying to protect myself. The leader stared at her again, really stared this time. Not with hate, but with uncertainty. For the first time since they met, she seemed unsure of everything she thought she knew. The new girl stepped back slowly, giving everyone space. I'm not your enemy, she said quietly. I just want to study and go home like everyone else. The leader looked down at the floor. Her voice shook slightly when she spoke again. You don't understand how this school works. And help me understand, the new girl said. Nobody spoke. The silence in the room stretched. softer now, almost uncomfortable. Finally, the leader lifted her eyes. "This isn't over," she whispered. But her tone was different, less threatening, more confused. The new girl nodded once. "I know." And though the leader didn't say it, something in her expression hinted at a new feeling. Not fear, not anger, something closer to respect. Mixed with frustration, the girls opened the door and walked out. Leaving the new girl alone in the quiet storage room, she let out a deep breath. She had been holding. She knew the storm wasn't gone, but for the first time since she arrived at this school, she felt the path ahead beginning to shift. Not toward danger, but toward truth. The morning of the last day in that long, tiring week arrived quietly. The new girl woke up earlier than usual, feeling that strange mix of calm and worry sitting in her chest again. The events of the past few days kept replaying in her mind: the stairs, the whispers, the tension in the cafeteria, the storage room conversation. None of it felt real yet, and yet it weighed on her more than anything else had in months. She got ready for school slowly, brushing her hair with steady hands, packing her bag neatly, and checking everything twice. She always tried to stay organized. It helped her keep her mind steady. But today, she felt distracted. Something told her that the day ahead would not be simple. When she reached school, she noticed immediately how different the atmosphere felt compared to earlier days. It wasn't loud or cruel, but it wasn't peaceful either. It was as if everyone was waiting for something to happen. She walked quietly toward her locker, hearing small whispers around her, though nobody said anything directly to her. One or two students gave her quick nods, as if showing silent respect. She wasn't sure how to respond, so she just nodded back gently. When she reached her locker, she opened it slowly, trying to block out the unease building inside her. She placed her books inside and took out the ones she needed for her first class. The hallway wasn't crowded yet, but she could feel eyes on her. Then, she saw them. The leader and her two friends were standing farther down the hallway, not close enough to confront her, but not far enough to ignore. They looked calmer than they had been in weeks. Their leader wasn't smirking, wasn't glaring, just standing with her arms crossed, thinking deeply about something. The new girl closed her locker and turned. She didn't want another argument, so she walked toward class without saying anything. But the three girls began walking too, not toward her, but behind her. It made her nervous, though she tried not to show it. When she reached the classroom door, she expected them to follow her inside, but instead they stopped. The leader spoke quietly. "After school, we need to talk." Her heart tensed, but she nodded once. "Okay." The leader didn't add anything else. She and her friends simply walked away. The new girl entered her class and took her seat, but she couldn't focus. She tapped her pencil lightly against her notebook, her mind spinning. She didn't know what the girls wanted now. Were they angry? Had they planned another trap? Or were they actually ready to talk? She didn't know, but she felt something different. Something in the leader's voice that wasn't threatening. It was tired. The morning moved slowly. Every class felt longer than usual. She tried to pay attention, but her thoughts kept drifting. During lunch, she sat at her usual table by the window, eating quietly. Unlike before, nobody approached her, not even the kind boy who had warned her earlier. It was as if everyone was keeping a respectful distance. Waiting to see what would happen after school, the three girls didn't come near her either. They sat at their own table, speaking quietly among themselves, glancing her way a few times but not doing anything else. She took slow breaths, trying to calm her nerves. She just wanted the day to end, and finally, it did. The final bell rang, and students rushed out of their classrooms excited to go home. The new girl packed her bag carefully, took a steadying breath, and walked out into the hallway. This time, she didn't see the three girls waiting. She thought for a moment that maybe they changed their minds. But when she stepped outside the school building, she saw them standing near the side yard, not the back area where they once tried to trick her, but an open space where teachers could easily see if something went wrong. She walked toward them slowly. The leader looked serious, but not angry. Her two friends looked unsure, shifting uncomfortably. When the new girl reached them, nobody spoke for a long moment. Finally, the leader sighed. "We're not here to fight." The new girl stayed quiet, waiting. The leader looked down for a moment before speaking again. "You made me look bad. And yeah, I was angry. But after what you said yesterday, I couldn't stop thinking." The new girl didn't interrupt. The leader continued, "I thought you were trying to show off, or make us seem weak. But you weren't. You were just defending yourself. And I didn't like that I couldn't push you around," one of her friends added quietly. "She's never met anyone who didn't back down before." The leader shot her friend a quick look. "But she didn't deny it," the new girl spoke softly. "I don't want to be your enemy." "I never wanted that." The leader let out a short, almost frustrated breath. "I see that now." The silence stretched again, but it felt different this time, less heavy. Lena arrived at the school gates just as the morning bell rang. The air felt cold against her face. She held her backpack straps tightly, as if they were the only familiar thing in this new place. Students rushed past her, laughing, chatting, and greeting each other. No one knew her here, and in a strange way she felt both nervous and relieved. It was a fresh start, even if it scared her a little. She walked into the main hallway, looking for the office. The sound of lockers slamming, shoes squeaking on the polished floor, and excited voices filled the building. Everything felt loud compared to her quiet thoughts. She kept her head slightly down as she moved. Not because she felt shy, because she preferred to observe rather than speak right away. After collecting her schedule from the office, she checked the first class listed, history. She took a slow breath and made her way toward the room. Students stood near the classroom door in groups. Some leaned against the wall, while others scrolled on their phones. Lena tried not to stare at anyone for too long. When she reached the door, the teacher, a tall man with glasses, gave her a welcoming smile. "You must be the new student. Come in, take a seat anywhere you like." She nodded politely and found an empty desk near the window. As she settled down, she felt several eyes on her. Whispers floated across the room, but she pretended not to hear. This wasn't new to her. Everywhere she went, people always tried to figure her out. Why was she so quiet? Why did she move like she was always thinking 2 steps ahead? Why didn't she ever react quickly to teasing? She had learned to ignore most of it. The class began normally. The teacher explained the lesson, students took notes, and Lena simply listened. But there was one group of students sitting toward the back, who seemed less interested in learning and more interested in studying her, one of them. A tall boy with a smirk that didn't fade nudged his friend. "She doesn't talk at all," he whispered loudly on purpose. His friend laughed softly. "Maybe she doesn't know English." Lena heard every word, but she didn't look at them. She kept her focus on the board, her face calm, her breathing steady. Nothing about her expression changed. During break, she walked out of the classroom and headed toward the courtyard. She found a quiet bench under a tree and sat down, taking out her lunch. A few minutes later, she heard footsteps approaching. It was the same boy from class, the one who had made comments. Behind him were 2 others, both wearing the same amused expression. "Hey," the tall boy said, leaning forward slightly. "New girl. You got a name?" Lena looked up slowly. "Lena," she answered softly. "Lena," he repeated, as if testing the sound of it. "I'm Troy, and these are my friends." He motioned to the boys behind him. She nodded politely and returned to her lunch. "You're really quiet," Troy said. "Like really quiet. You nervous or something?" "No," Lena replied. "Then why don't you talk?" She shrugged gently. "I talk when needed." Boys exchanged looks, clearly amused. They weren't used to someone who didn't give them the reaction they wanted. Troy waited a moment, then said, "You're kind of strange, you know that?" Lena didn't argue. She simply returned her gaze to her food. Eventually the boys walked away, laughing lightly among themselves. Lena felt no anger toward them, only curiosity. She wondered why some people enjoyed trying to disturb others. But she didn't think too hard about it. She had more important things to focus on. Like getting through her first day without trouble, the next few days passed in a similar pattern. Lena attended her classes, completed assignments, and kept to herself. She didn't avoid people, but she didn't seek out attention either. Sometimes a student would greet her, and she would respond kindly, but she never pushed for conversation. Troy, however, seemed to notice her silence more than anyone else. Every time she walked into class, she could feel his eyes follow her. He would whisper things to his friends, not out of anger, but curiosity. The boys tried small ways to irritate her, dropping pencils on her desk, whispering jokes, pretending to bump into her, but she didn't react. One afternoon in the cafeteria, Lena sat alone eating. A girl from her math class walked over and smiled. "Mind if I sit here?" Lena shook her head. "Go ahead." The girl sat down, placing her tray beside Lena's. "You're new, right?" "I'm Dana, hi." Lena offered a small smile. Dana studied her for a moment. "You're very calm. That's different. Most new students either talk too much or stay scared the whole time. But you're just peaceful." Helena smiled again, grateful for the kind observation. Dana continued, "I've seen those boys bothering you. Don't take it personally. They pick on anyone they think they can joke around with. Just be careful. They don't always know when to stop." Lena nodded, listening closely. "Thank you. If they get too annoying, I can help you talk to a teacher," Dana offered. It's okay," Lena said softly. "I can manage." Dana looked unsure, but didn't push further. That evening, Lena returned home feeling a mix of exhaustion and quiet hope. Her new school wasn't bad, just loud. She sat at the kitchen table, helping her mother prepare dinner, and talked a little about her day. Not every detail, but enough to ease her thoughts. Her mother smiled gently. "You'll settle in soon." "You always do." Lena believed her. The following week, things shifted. Troy's interest turned slowly into irritation. The more Lena ignored the small pranks, the more determined he became to get a reaction from her. It wasn't anger that drove him, it was confusion. Most people either got angry, scared, or annoyed when teased. But Lena stayed calm every single time. One morning, as she reached her locker, she noticed Troy and his friend standing nearby. She opened her locker quietly. When she did, a stack of papers fell out, flyers someone had stuffed inside. They fluttered to the floor around her shoes. Troy snorted with laughter. "Oops, looks like your locker's got a mind of its own." Lena crouched down and gathered the papers without saying a word. She placed them neatly inside the recycling bin and walked away. Troy frowned, watching her go. He expected her to get irritated or upset, but she looked the same as always, peaceful. "What's with her?" one of his friends muttered. Troy shook his head. "I don't get it. It's like she doesn't feel anything." Lena did feel things. She simply chose not to show them. She had learned long ago that reacting only fed the behavior of people who sought attention. Still, she knew the boys' behavior wasn't harmless. She sensed they weren't finished testing her. During gym class, while she stood stretching quietly, she overheard Troy whispering to his friend, "I'm telling you, she's hiding something. Nobody's that calm. Maybe she's scared. Maybe she's just weird." His friend shrugged. "Maybe she's boring." Troy smirked. "We'll see. I'm going to find out what's up with her." That evening, Lena sat at her desk, working on her homework. She paused for a moment, thinking about the day. She didn't like attention. She didn't like confrontation either, but she knew she couldn't avoid it forever. Still, she hoped things would settle on their own, but the next day brought no such luck as she walked to her final class of the afternoon. She noticed Troy standing by the door, arms crossed. His friends leaned against the wall beside him, grinning. "Hi, Lena," Troy said with a tone that suggested trouble. "We want to talk to you after school." "Sports hall. Don't be late." Lena blinked slowly, her expression still calm, but her mind alert. She didn't answer. "You heard me right?" Troy pressed. She gave a small nod and walked past them. Troy smiled as if he had succeeded in something. His friends exchanged looks, excited. Lena, however, felt a quiet wave of concern. She could sense something was building, something that would push her further than before. She wasn't afraid, just cautious. She wanted peace. But she also knew how to handle herself if peace wasn't an option, and from the way Troy watched her, she could tell he was ready to test her limits. Lena took a deep breath and prepared herself for whatever would come next, knowing that no matter what happened, she would stay true to who she was. .com. Strong and ready. Lena woke up the next morning with a strange feeling in her stomach. It wasn't fear exactly, but a sense of something approaching something she couldn't fully understand yet. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes as the soft sunlight entered her room. Her mother called out from the kitchen, reminding her that breakfast was ready. Lena dressed quietly and joined her, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. Her mother noticed the distraction on her face. "Everything okay at school?" she asked gently. Lena hesitated before answering. "It's fine. Just busy." Her mother nodded, not pushing for details. She knew Lena would speak when she felt ready. After breakfast, Lena picked up her backpack and headed out for school, walking at the same steady pace she always kept. But her mind wandered back to what Troy had said the previous day. He wanted to meet her after school in the sports hall. She didn't know what he was planning. She could guess it wasn't something harmless. When she reached school, the hallways were as lively as ever. Students laughed, shouted, and hurried in groups toward their lockers or classes. Lena blended into the flow quietly, moving with calm steps. As she approached her locker, she noticed Troy and his friends standing nearby again. They weren't pretending to accidentally bump into her this time. They stood there as if waiting for her. Troy gave her a nod when she got close. "Remember our little meeting today, right?" he said with a raised eyebrow. Lena opened her locker without looking at him. "Yes." "Good," he said, crossing his arms. "Don't be late." Lena closed her locker, nodded once more, and walked away. She didn't feel scared, but she wasn't thrilled either. She simply wanted to get through the school day peacefully, in her first class. She sat near the window, listening to the lesson. But it was hard to concentrate. She could feel Troy's eyes on her again from across the room. Whenever she glanced his way, he quickly looked elsewhere, pretending to be interested in the lesson. She wondered why he cared so much about her silence. What did he expect her to do? Shout back at him? Cry? Fight? None of those things were in her nature. During lunch, she sat at her usual spot under the tree in the courtyard. Dana joined her again, placing her tray down with a soft smile. "You seem quiet today," Dana said. "More than usual? Something happened?" Lena shook her head lightly. "Just thinking." Dana took a bite of her sandwich and studied her. "Those boys, they're planning something, aren't they?" she asked quietly. Lena didn't answer right away. She didn't want to involve Dana, but she also felt it wasn't fair to pretend everything was fine. "They asked me to meet them after school," Lena said in a calm voice. Dana frowned. "Where?" "Sports hall." Dana sighed loudly. "They're definitely up to something. Look, you don't need to go. Just tell a teacher or go straight home. They're not worth your time." Lena considered her words. She appreciated Dana's concern, but she also knew that avoiding the situation wouldn't stop it. The boys had made up their minds about her being a target. If she didn't show up, they would only try something else later. "I'll be fine," Lena said gently. Dana looked unconvinced. "If they try anything, call for help." "I'm serious," Lena nodded, though she knew she probably wouldn't need help. She wasn't planning to fight. She didn't believe in hurting people unless she had no choice. Her goal was always to stay calm and avoid conflict. But she also knew how to protect herself if she had to. After lunch, the rest of the school day passed slowly. Every time she walked into a classroom, she felt the weight of the coming meeting. Troy and his friends seemed more excited than usual. They whispered among themselves, occasionally glancing her way. They acted like kids preparing a prank they couldn't wait to show off in math class. One of Troy's friends, a short boy with messy hair, leaned forward and whispered loudly, "Hope you're ready for later." Lena didn't turn around. She continued writing notes, her face as calm as still water. When the final bell rang, students flooded the hallways, grabbing their bags and rushing toward the exits. Lena stood up slowly, adjusting her backpack. Dana approached her, worry filling her eyes. "Are you really going?" Dana asked. "Yes," Lena replied softly. "Do you want me to come with you?" Dana offered, Lena shook her head. It's okay. I can handle it. Dana bit her lip. Please be careful. Lena gave her a small smile, then turned and walked toward the sports hall. Each step she took felt steady, though her mind stayed sharp. She wasn't scared, but she was alert. She could sense the tension building, like a quiet storm forming in the distance. The sports hall was at the far end of the school, away from the busy areas. The closer she got, the quieter the hallways became. When she reached the entrance, she paused for a moment before pushing the door open. Inside, the large room was empty, except for Troy and his two friends standing in the middle of the floor. Their voices echoed faintly off the high walls. Troy smirked when he saw her. Right on time. Lena stepped inside, letting the door close behind her. What do you want? She asked gently. Relax, Troy said, raising his hands as if pretending to be harmless. Just wanted to talk. Lena didn't move closer. She stayed where she was, watching them carefully. There was something in Troy's expression that made her more alert than before. It wasn't anger, but something like playful cruelty. The kind that came from someone who had too much free time and too little guidance. You're an interesting person, Troy said, circling slowly. You never talk. You never react. It's kind of weird, don't you think? Lena shook her head. No, I'm just quiet. Too quiet, he said. Almost like you're hiding something. She didn't answer. So we wanted to see what it takes to make you speak up. He smiled, and the expression wasn't friendly. You know, just a little test. Nothing serious. His friends snickered behind him. Lena stayed calm. I don't want trouble. We're not trying to cause trouble, Troy lied, shrugging casually. We're just curious. He stepped a little closer. Lena didn't step back, but she straightened her posture slightly. Why don't you ever react? He asked. Everyone reacts. Everyone gets mad, scared, annoyed. But you, nothing. Like you're made of stone or something. Lena looked him in the eyes. I don't need to react to everything, Troy laughed. That's not normal. You know that, right? She didn't answer. One of the boys behind him, the messy-haired one, leaned in and whispered something. Troy's eyes lit up with mischief. "'Kay then," Troy said. "Let's try something simple." He reached out suddenly and flicked her backpack strap, as if trying to get a rise out of her. Lena stayed still. Troy raised an eyebrow. Nothing really? He stepped closer again, pretending to inspect her face. What, are you scared? Or are you pretending not to be? Lena remained calm, but inside she could feel the situation shifting. The boys weren't satisfied with her calmness. They wanted a reaction, and if she didn't give them one, they might push further. Look, Lena said softly, I just want to go home. Please move. Troy smirked and stepped in her way. Not yet. We're not done talking. His friends moved behind her, forming a loose circle. Lena didn't panic, but she knew this was turning into something they thought was a game. Troy lowered his voice. Just give us something. Shout. A push. Anything. Show us you're real. Lena looked at him carefully, reading the expression on his face. He wasn't trying to hurt her physically, at least not yet. He simply wanted control over the moment. Please, she said again, calmly but firmly. Move. Troy chuckled. Or what? Lena didn't answer. Her silence only made him more determined. He stepped even closer this time. Close enough that she could smell the faint scent of his shampoo. His friends laughed behind her, waiting to see what he would do. But before anything could happen, a loud voice echoed through the hall. Hey, what are you all doing in here? All three boys froze. Lena turned her head slightly to see a gym supervisor standing near the doorway, arms crossed with suspicion. Troy quickly stepped back. We were just talking, he said casually. The sports hall is off limits right now, the supervisor said. All of you should head home now. The boys mumbled something and hurried toward the exit. Troy shot Lena one last look before leaving, not angry, but frustrated. Like he had been interrupted before getting the answer he wanted. Lena remained standing until the hall was empty again. Then she slowly picked up her backpack and walked outside. The supervisor didn't question her further, simply reminding her to leave the building outside. The fresh air felt soothing. The sun had started to lower in the sky, coloring everything in soft gold. Lena walked home with calm steps, though her mind stayed active. Troy wasn't finished. She could tell by the look he gave her. Whatever he had planned for today had only been postponed, and she knew tomorrow would bring even more attention from him and his friends. But Lena wasn't worried. She had dealt with tougher situations before. She always remained calm no matter what, and she was prepared to continue doing the same. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming. Something that would push her to reveal more of herself than she ever planned to. But no matter what happened next, Lena knew she would stay true to who she was. Quiet, steady, and stronger than anyone realized. The next days at school felt different for the new girl. It was not because everything had suddenly become easier, but because she had finally stopped trying to hide who she was. After what happened in the hallway, more students looked at her with curiosity, but not in a bad way. They seemed unsure, like they were trying to understand the quiet girl they once thought would never speak up. Still, she kept her calm expression, just like she always did. She walked through the corridors without rushing, her bag hanging from one shoulder, her steps soft but steady, but deep inside. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt awake. She felt like the part of herself she had kept hidden was finally breathing again. Even though she didn't want trouble, she also didn't want to live in fear of anyone, especially not of people who only felt strong when bringing others down. That morning, when she entered the school, she could already sense the whispering around her. She didn't look up at the groups of students leaning against the lockers, but she felt their eyes on her. She walked straight toward her homeroom, hoping the day would be quiet. But she knew deep inside that things rarely went the way she hoped. The girls who had tried to mess with her earlier, the same ones who used to block her locker, pull rude jokes, or throw sharp looks whenever she passed, were not done. She could feel it even before seeing them. Their leader, a tall girl with sharp eyes and a forced confident smile, had a habit of making people feel small. And she didn't like the fact that the new girl had taken the attention away from her. When the new girl entered the classroom, a few students looked up from their seats. Some stared a little longer than usual. A boy near the back whispered something to his friend, and they both looked at her. She quietly sat down, keeping her eyes on her notebook. She didn't want to create scenes. She wanted a normal school life, quiet days, calm mornings, and peaceful evenings. But life didn't always give people what they wanted. Everything was calm until lunchtime. She took her tray and sat down at an empty table near the window. She always liked sitting by the window. It made her feel less trapped, like she had space to breathe. From where she sat, she could see the school courtyard. A few students were kicking a football, some chatting, and some simply walking alone. She had barely taken 2 bites when she noticed someone moving toward her table. It was the same group of girls. The leader walked ahead, her arms crossed, her chin slightly raised as if she owned the entire cafeteria. The new girl looked down, pretending not to notice them. But they sat right across from her, 3 of them blocking her view of the window. "So," the leader said in a sweet but fake tone, "you think you're brave now?" The new girl didn't answer. She took another quiet bite. She did not want problems. The leader clicked her tongue. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." The new girl lifted her eyes slowly. Her expression was calm, her voice steady but soft. "I don't want trouble." "Trouble?" the leader repeated with a laugh. "Girl, you've already made trouble. You embarrassed us in the hallway. You made us look stupid. And now everyone's talking about you like you're something special." The other girls nodded, one tapping her nails on the table. Pretending to be impatient, the new girl closed her lunchbox, even though she was still hungry. She didn't want the entire cafeteria to witness another scene. She stood up without a word, but the leader stood up too, blocking her way. "Where do you think you're going?" "Away from here," the new girl said softly. "Not so fast." The leader reached out and grabbed the new girl's wrist. It was a light grip, not painful, but rude and controlling, something the new girl didn't like. For a second, she froze. Memories rushed back to her old town, her old school, the long hours of training in the dojo, the reason she had left in the first place. She took a silent breath. "I said let go," she whispered. "Make me," the leader smirked. The cafeteria became quiet. Students turned their heads. Forks stopped moving. Even the boys who always made noise during lunch paused mid-sentence. The new girl lifted her eyes to meet the leader's. Her gaze was calm but firm. She gently twisted her wrist not with force, but with a simple, practiced motion. The leader's grip slipped off easily. The movement was so subtle and smooth that most students didn't even understand what happened. The leader stepped back in surprise. "What was that?" The new girl didn't answer. She simply walked around the table, but the leader followed again, refusing to let her leave. "Hey, I'm talking to you," the leader said, her voice louder. The new girl stopped, turned her head slightly, and spoke in a soft voice that still carried across the cafeteria. "I'm not afraid of you." The cafeteria went silent again. The leader laughed, but the laughter didn't sound real. "Oh, really? Let's see about that." She moved closer, too close. The new girl stepped back once, keeping space between them. She didn't raise her hands. She didn't look angry. Her face was calm in a way that made the leader even more irritated. "You think doing one little move makes you strong?" The leader said. "Try that again." "Go ahead, I won't," the new girl replied softly. "I don't want to hurt anyone." "Hurt?" The leader laughed again. "You hurt me?" "Please." A few students at nearby tables exchanged looks. Some whispered to each other, sensing something was about to happen, but not sure what. The leader pushed her shoulder lightly. "Go on, do something." The new girl didn't move. The leader pushed again. Harder still, the new girl didn't react. She simply breathed slowly, keeping her eyes on the floor for a moment, then looking up again with a calm expression. "I don't fight unless I have to." For some reason, that sentence bothered the leader even more than any punch would have. She frowned, then pushed her again. This time, the new girl stepped back, not out of fear, but to keep her balance. She looked around the cafeteria. All eyes were on her. She didn't want this attention. She didn't want to be the center of a scene. She didn't want her past to return like this. But she also didn't want to let someone treat her like she was weak. The leader stepped closer again. "Last chance. Do something. Unless you were just acting the other day." Now the new girl blinked once, slowly. She straightened her back, relaxed her shoulders, and looked directly at the leader. "I wasn't acting," she said in a calm voice. Some students leaned forward. They sensed something shifting in the air. The leader didn't back away. She lifted her hand like she was about to shove the new girl again, but the shove never landed. Before anyone could understand what happened, the new girl moved her hand gently, not fast. Not aggressively, but in a practiced motion. She touched the leader's wrist, lowered it, and stepped aside in one smooth movement. The leader stumbled a little, not in pain, but in shock. She had expected resistance, or fear, or hesitation. Instead, the new girl showed control, calmness, and skill. Students gasped softly. "What? What was that?" one of the girls whispered. The new girl didn't answer. She picked up her bag and walked toward the cafeteria door. But before she left, she paused. She turned slightly, her voice still soft. "Please stop bothering me. I don't want to fight anyone. I just want to study and live quietly." Then she walked out. The cafeteria stayed silent for several seconds after she left. The leader stood frozen, unsure what had just happened. The two girls beside her whispered nervously, but she didn't respond, even though nothing violent happened. The message was clear enough to leave everyone speechless. The new girl was not someone to be pushed around, and for the first time, the leader felt a strange, unfamiliar feeling rise inside her, fear, the next morning. The new girl walked into school with her usual calm steps, but the atmosphere around her felt heavier. It wasn't loud or chaotic. It was the kind of heaviness that came from silence. Students didn't whisper as much now. They didn't point or laugh. Instead, they watched her quietly, as if finally seeing her for who she was, and not the quiet girl they once believed they could push around. She didn't enjoy this new attention. She only wanted peace. But peace was something that often took a long time to find, As she walked toward her locker, she noticed a few students standing nearby, pretending not to stare. She kept her face calm, opened her locker, and arranged her books. She tried to ignore the feeling that something else was coming. She could almost sense it in the air, like a storm that hadn't broken yet. The leader of the bullies didn't show up during the morning break. Neither did her two friends. Usually they were the type to make noise wherever they went. The halls were strangely quiet without their voices bouncing off the walls by the time the lunch bell rang. The new girl felt a knot in her stomach. She carried her lunch to the same table by the window, hoping nobody would bother her, but hope wasn't enough. A boy, she recognized from one of her classes, walked over and stood near her table. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" She nodded once. Yes, he looked worried. "People are saying the girls are planning something. I don't know if it's true, but just be careful." "Thank you," she replied, appreciating the kindness but not wanting him to get involved. "I'll be fine." He nodded and walked away, though he kept glancing back at her. She took a slow breath. The cafeteria was loud today, much louder than the day before. Chairs scraped, trays clattered, and voices mixed into one big blur. She ate quietly, hoping nobody would walk up to her. Then she saw something. Across the cafeteria, the leader and her two friends were sitting together. They weren't laughing. They weren't talking loudly. They were watching her, and their expressions were not the same as before. There was anger, a deep, boiling kind of anger that didn't just come from embarrassment. It came from pride being wounded. The new girl felt her chest tighten. She didn't want another scene. She didn't want teachers involved. Most of all, she didn't want to hurt anyone. But the three girls stood up, and they started walking toward her. She didn't move. She didn't want to show fear, but she didn't want to challenge them either. She simply stayed still and tried to breathe. When they reached her table, the leader spoke first. "We need to talk," she said in a low voice. The new girl looked up. "About what?" "Come with us. I'd rather stay here." The leader leaned down slightly. "I wasn't asking." Cafeteria noise softened again. Students sensed the tension. Some shifted in their seats. Others turned to watch. The new girl stood up slowly. She didn't want the whole school to witness this again. She didn't want to give the bullies a reason to escalate publicly. "Where?" she asked quietly. The leader smirked, a cold grin forming on her face. "You'll see." The three girls led her out of the cafeteria. A few students hesitated, unsure whether to follow, but they stayed where they were. The new girl walked behind the group calmly. Her heart beat faster, but her steps stayed steady. They walked down the hallway, past the classrooms, and toward the back of the building where the old gym storage room was. It was a quiet area, almost too quiet. The leader stopped near the doorway and turned around. "Go inside," she said. The new girl looked around. The hallway was empty. No teachers. No students. No sounds. The leader took a step closer. "Why didn't you tell anyone about what happened? About us grabbing you and all that? You could have gotten us in trouble, 'cause I didn't want things to get worse," the new girl said softly. "I just wanted peace." The leader studied her carefully. "You really are different." The new girl lowered her eyes. "Not different. Just trying to avoid problems." The leader took a slow breath. "I don't say sorry easily, but I'm saying it now. For everything we did," the new girl's chest loosened slightly. "Thank you." Her voice was almost a whisper. The leader wasn't done, though. Her expression softened, just a little. "You said you hurt someone once? Was it really bad?" The new girl hesitated, but something in the leader's tone made her feel safe enough to answer. "Yes," she said quietly. "It was during practice. I reacted too fast, and I was stronger than I realized. That person fell badly and got hurt. Not forever, but it scared me. It scared everyone." "And that's why you promised not to fight anymore?" the leader asked. "Yes." For a moment, none of the girls spoke. Then the leader crossed her arms again. But this time, not in a threatening way more. Like she was thinking deeply. "You know," she said slowly, "you could teach us something." The new girl blinked. Teach you? Not fighting, the leader said quickly. Just how you stay calm. How you move without hurting anyone. How you controlled yourself in the cafeteria. That was impressive. Her friends nodded quietly behind her. The new girl felt her heart soften slightly. She didn't expect this. Not from them. I can show you, she said gently. If you want, the leader nodded once. Not today, but maybe next week. Okay. Another silence settled, but this time it felt light. Honest. Finally, the leader straightened her posture. We're not friends. Not yet, but we're not enemies either. The new girl gave a small, shy smile. That's enough. The leader almost smiled back almost. See you around, she said. Turning to leave, she and her two friends walked away slowly, not in anger now, but in something that felt almost like acceptance. The new girl stood alone for a moment, breathing in the cool afternoon air. She felt the weight in her chest finally ease. She didn't know what would happen next week. She didn't know if the girls would keep their word. She didn't know if they would ever truly become friends, but she knew one thing. The fear-filled beginning she had walked into was no longer her. Reality. She had stood her ground. She had stayed true to her promise. She had protected her peace without hurting anyone. And in doing that, she had changed something not just in herself, but in the people around her. As she walked home that day, her steps felt lighter. The sun felt warmer. And for the first time since she moved to this new town, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she could build a life here. Not one filled with fear, but one filled with balance, strength, and quiet courage. The kind of courage that didn't shout. The kind that simply stayed steady, even in the storm. And for the first time, she didn't feel like the new girl anymore. She felt like someone who belonged.